Very good morning to you, all of you. Namaskar to you. I wish your annual conference a grand success. And I heard some of the speech of Mr. Bruce Doris, the international president. He made a very interesting points, and I feel it privilege to be associated with you today with this lecture on rule of law and constitutional values. I have to thank Mr. Radha Krishna Garu and Sharath Kumar Garu for their nice words about me. Thank you so much. So nice of you that you are hearing my videos, you are reading my articles, and you found me. They deserve to be part of your esteemed international conference. The topic that you have given me is a very, very fundamental, important. Do you know why? Because the entire constitutional mechanism is built to question the fraud. We have to detect the fraud, we have to question the fraud, we have to remove the fraud, and we have to develop such systems through which we can fight the fraud. That is the sole aim and objective of constitution and constitutional values. And I think after listening to Mr. Bruce Doris, I found that the importance of constitutional mechanism and the values that we have imbibed and incorporated in our Constitution of India, like any other constitution in the world over, in a democratic constitution, that we have to be very, very, very cautious. We have to be vigilant, and we have to fight against the tendencies that are going to defraud the nation and the people. This is a very, very important aspect. I'm really surprised when Mr. Bruce Doris has said that the possibility of increase of fraud in coming years before March is 92%. I was really shocked. And it's perfectly possible. I don't doubt it. It is possible. But when I heard the figure 92%, I really got shocked. And it's there. And what I am seeing, what you are seeing today in a democratic governance, anywhere in the world, you will find very, very serious aberrations, dishonest moves. What to do? What to do is the biggest question before the people who are working on developing systems and teaching the people to be vigilant. And in fact, I'd like to tell you, your association of certified fraud examiners, is performing a constitutional duty. Do you know what is that duty? It is stipulated in Article 51A and Subarticle H. It says we are all supposed to. It starts like this: it shall be the duty of every citizen of India. It shall be the duty of, shall be, I think you know, it's a mandate. It shall be the duty of every citizen of India to develop the scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform. Your vigilance, your association, fraud inspection is part of vigilance. We should be vigilant for what? How do we be vigilant? We will be doing it by spirit of inquiry. And what for we do that? With a spirit of reform. We want to change the society. We want to change the individual. We have to change the systems so that it is difficult to commit fraud. Difficult. Committing fraud must be made difficult by systems and by law. And then we have to have a spirit of inquiry and reform. And we should also have a scientific temper to understand what exactly is the reason behind what is happening. A policy is announced. Is it correct? Is it democratic? Should we criticize it? Criticize, when I say, does not mean advance comments on that. I mean, can we inquire into it? Can we understand and analyze the objectives? See, if an act is passed, there are two possibilities. What is the effect of it, and what is the intent of it? What is the object and what is the effect? We have to see that. So I will topic. Somebody asked me to repeat the topic. I'm delivering a lecture on. It is rule of law and constitutional values. I'll explain it. See, rule of law means having a system, and that system should rule, not the individual. Rule of law means institutional rule, not individual rule. You are all members of an association which has international reputation, and you are performing a wonderful duty. And do you know, you are exercising part of a constitutional value. That's what I was telling. I was explaining that you are performing a duty of spirit of inquiry, performing or acting in developing spirit of inquiry when you are vigilant, when you are inspecting a fraud, and you are also working for reform. So what for you inspect fraud? To reform. So inspection of fraud is the duty of every citizen of India according to Article 51A H. So why I'm telling this? It is part of the system of constitutional governance. And when you have a system of constitutional governance, it is called rule of law. And what is constitutional value in it? Maybe that is the question of Mr. Pawan Kumar. The answer is constitutional value of it is you have to be always vigilant and you can't afford to be lazy. You can't afford to sleep over the events that are happening around. If you are silent even for a minute, we don't know what will happen. You imagine a person driving his motor vehicle in a thick traffic road of some city like Hyderabad. How vigilant you should be? You should be very vigilant. You can't even drop an eyelid. You can't. You must be very, very careful, and you must be see this way 360 view. You must have 360-degree view. You have to have a watch on the corner, this corner, that corner. Your mirrors may help you to some extent, but you should be alert. And that alertness alone will help you to come back home safe. And that is required in a democracy. That is required for a person who is doing auditing, who is doing inspecting, who is doing anything which is beneficial to the society. What happens generally is one of the most important principles of rule of law is everybody should have equal right to vote. Do you know it's the biggest achievement when it happened in 1950? Biggest achievement. There was a discussion who should get voting right. There was a discussion in the Constituent Assembly. Then all elders, including Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, argued that everyone who has attained the age of 21 years should have voting right. That's all. That's the principle. But earlier it was not the case. Not only in India, in most of the countries. It depends on your educational qualification. It depends on your what is that? Your other uh, proximities with the government. You are a jamindar, so you will have a vote. You have an estate, so you'll have a vote. Or you are a person very close to the establishment before the independence of India, so you will have vote. You have studied barrister in London, so you have a vote. So you own a little amount of money, so you have a vote. Otherwise, you don't have. What kind of an equality it is? What kind of a rule of law it is? What kind of a governance it is? What kind of a distribution of power among the people it is? That was debated. And there was a huge debate among the Constituent Assembly members as to prescribe educational qualification, minimum educational qualification. There shall be some minimum qualification for becoming a voter. He doesn't know what he is voting for, whom he is voting for, why he is voting for, why should he vote. He doesn't know. Then the question is, who is educated person? Who is an educated person? A person who passed 10th class, is he educated? Or should somebody do like me, LLD, to become educated person? And what do you mean by education? What do you mean by education? This is the question. Do you know what answer was given in the Constituent Assembly by the makers of the Constitution? They said, you are confused between literacy and education. You are thinking that literate is educated, but no. Educated may not be literate, but literator may not become educated. So that is the difference between literacy and education. A person who has worldly knowledge, but he doesn't have a degree, do you think that he is uneducated? I don't think. We are not uneducated. Kamaraj, I hope you remember, Kamaraj was one of the leaders of Indian National Congress immediately after the attainment of independence. He has not gone to school, but he is highly educated, abundant common sense, civic sense, humanity, concern for systems, and knows how to administer a country and administer a state. What more you want? Do you remember Anjaya? We used to have one chief minister, Anjaya. Anjaya is not a graduate like you and me. He might have not gone to the college, but he knows what are the problems of the people, what are the issues of a poor worker, what helps him to recover from the problems that he is suffering from. He knows. And he should be the leader. He should be the leader. What kind of education you are asking for? If he's graduated from a college, is it enough? Now you look at the present education system. Every father, every mother wants his son either to be engineer or a doctor, and as if all other educational institutions are irrelevant, useless. It's a mind-boggling craziness of following one trend. Somebody set the trend and we are following it. Now you have that 4-year education. Before that, you are having coaching in several institutions which will indoctrinate you. It doesn't make you to think about it, but it will impose the data on your head, and they don't know the difference between data, information, and knowledge, and they can never achieve wisdom. So, and because of that, he knows how to solve a multiple answer question within time. He's trained and he will do it, and he'll get a seat in engineering or medicine. He'll complete it in 4 or 5 years, and then immediately he got a placement. He goes, and he doesn't know. Do you know what he doesn't know? He doesn't know what is society. He doesn't know what is family. He doesn't know how you have to have relations with other people. And he doesn't know, if you marry, how is that you are supposed to behave with your spouse. This is the problem. So what I'm trying to tell you is, a qualification of education to a voting right is not correct. It is not rule of law. It is not value. So equality is the value. So you must value each personality and give one value of the vote. And everybody having one value of the vote is greatest achievement of Indian democracy in 1950. And because of that, we are having wonderful power in our hands to change the government without revolution. This is the first constitutional value I want to explain. And I was explaining the difference between education and literacy. We are literate and we should not think that we are educated. We should have concern for the people. That is real education. That is the equality. Okay. The first value of constitutional value of our Indian constitution, which is supposed to rule our law, is equality, which is enshrined in Article 14, which is yeah, I agree with someone is saying that we should not misuse. Yeah, I'll tell two things about it. The power of the vote has to be understood. First of all, I'll give you an example. 1975, there was an emergency, and I'm not talking about any politics. I'm not criticizing any or appreciating any political party. I'm just presenting a fact. In 1975, what happened? We have three estates in our Indian constitution: executive, legislature, judiciary. And media is a powerful institution which is in private hands, which is in individual hands, which is not totally regulated, which reflects the freedom of speech and expression. Freedom of speech and expression is another very important right I would like to tell you. In 1815, Magna Carta was the concept of Magna Carta. That means Charter of Rights, very important rights. So what are our rights? We never thought about it. 1815, it is an international cry against arbitrary decisions of emperor. We used to have a king or emperor. Everybody else is subject, and nobody knows what their rights are. The first ever demand for rights happened in 1815, and over a period of time, it developed into an agitation. And in 1948, in 1947, we have Indian Constitution. Sorry, we have independence, and we are drafting the Constitution. In 1948, there is a Universal Declaration of Human Rights. First time, the universal people started thinking about enlisting rights of the people. And we are, at that time, we have grabbed that opportunity and we have declared the fundamental rights in our constitution. And among those wonderful fundamental rights, there are two very important rights. You may think that right to life is very important. I agree with you. But more than right to life, it is freedom of speech and expression that is very important. Freedom of speech and expression. And why it is so? Why freedom of speech and expression is so important? I'll tell you. And in 1815, do you know what was the first right people demanded against the dictatorship? right to petition. So if I have right to petition, if I have right to request you, I'll request for the right to life. I'll request for right to equality. I'll request for right to property. I'll request for right to so many other things. So right to petition was considered as a very most important rights in 1815, and it was granted over. I don't want to give you the dates of the history of human rights, but it's enough. You're all intelligent people. You can easily understand. It started with right to petition, and today we have list of rights available in 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights and list of rights available in Fundamental Rights chapter of Indian Constitution. And one of such important right is 19(1)(a) article, which talks about freedom of speech and expression. This is also misused. Let us talk about use first of all, and misuse. Okay, we will prevent it. How we are misusing and how to prevent it is a big issue, like a fraud detection. You have to detect misuse also. So I was giving the example of 1975 emergency imposition. There was a rule that when there is a security threat to the country, you can impose internal emergency. That is a provision in the Indian Constitution under 352. Okay, fine. Then how is that? Who has to do that? President has to declare it. And how is that president has to do? Is president supreme authority of India? No. He is supreme head of India. But who is the supreme authority? He cannot act unless there is an advice from the prime minister. So who is the supreme authority in India? Is it prime minister? Yes, to some extent, but not to a great extent. What is that? He has to go by the advice of the council of ministers. You must have a resolution in council of ministers. Cabinet, yeah, cabinet is a part of council of ministers. So council of ministers has to advise you and then resolve, and then you take that advice to the president of India to declare emergency and take certain strict measures, suspend certain rights, do certain things. Yeah, okay, it's a constructive provision, not a destructive provision. But because of our experience in 1975, we consider it as a bane and it's a curse and it should not happen again. I agree. At a dead of night, I'll narrate one incident. What are the constitutional values and how is it we have to protect those values? At the dead of night, around 12 o'clock, the file goes to Rashtrapati Bhavan from Prime Minister's office in person by hand. Then there the file was cursorily read by the President of India, Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad was the president. Then he thought that there is something very serious involved in it. So why not we consult Constitution of India? He has to consult the Constitution of India. I'm happy that he got that wonderful idea. And he asked his PS to fetch him the copy of the Constitution of India. He went to the Rashtrapati Bhavan's library. He was searching for it. And I'm unhappy that you have to search for the copy of the Constitution of India. It should be there on the table of President of India, not only a President of India, but on the table of every citizen of India. Please remember it. Have a copy of the Constitution of India on your table. Whatever copy is available around, please purchase and have it. Okay, I'll give the importance of that latter. Now, I would like to tell you in between one more important point. Do you know every constitutional office holder has to take an oath? Do you know what is that kind of oath? Have you ever heard of it? I so-and-so pledge that I will abide by the constitution established by law. Language is different, but I'm giving you essence. So I'm supposed to abide by the constitutional law, which is established by law. That is everybody's oath. But what is the oath of President of India? Have you ever verified? He says, I'll preserve and protect the Constitution of India, which is established by law. You are elected to such a wonderful position, head of the state, and you are supposed to protect the Constitution. And how is that they are protecting it? They are protecting it by keeping copy of the Constitution of India under lock and key of an almirah in library, not consulting it, not using it. Is that the protection? No. Then meanwhile, what happened while the PS was searching for the copy of the Constitution of India, an emissary has come. An emissary has come from the PMO, and he is asking President of India, sir, it is a very, very important decision. You can't delay it, and we have to start working immediately. Please do something. Then he believed in what all is stated by him, and he signed and sent off. Then the secretary came with a copy of the constitution. I'm happy that they discovered it. Then president says, I don't need it now. I have already signed. I have already signed. Then I'm surprised. Yeah, Mr. Pawan Kumar wants the question to be read out to me. You, Pawan Kumar, you please, you yourself read it. I'll take the question. I have no problem.
Sir, we will take up the questions at the end, sir, so that
then ask Pawan Kumar to please ask Pawan Kumar to wait. I'll leave 10 or 15 minutes time for the questions and answers. Okay.
Yes, sir. Pawan Kumar, sir, please wait.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. Because when he's writing something, I'm distracted, na? So yes, I have to answer. I'll definitely answer, Pawan Kumar. I'll definitely answer.
Thank you.
Okay, don't worry. Because it is your right to freedom of speech and expression. You can ask, and it is my duty to inform you to the extent I know. Okay. Okay. What I was trying to tell you in President of India's imposition of emergency episode is that when that fellow came, that person emissary came from PMO, he said, no, sir, madam has taken care of everything. Please don't worry. Please sign it. He signed it. And at 6 o'clock, Akashvani radio was announcing the seriousness has been understood when Akashvani was pronouncing the news item. And you know, like you and me, President also was listening to the news item that everything is blocked, newspapers were stopped, electricity was supply was suspended, fundamental rights are suspended. Then he understood the seriousness of it, and then he opened the constitution and read it, and it clearly says, unless there is a cabinet resolution, and Prime Minister brings that resolution to the President of India, you cannot declare emergency. This is the constitutional value. I don't want to take a class on the Constitution. I want to explain the constitutional value. Do you know, when I say individuals do not rule, I say President will not rule. He will be going by the advice of the Prime Minister. Prime Minister will not rule. He will be going by the resolution of the Cabinet. Cabinet will not rule. They have to be accountable, and they have to consult, they have to debate in Parliament. And Parliament is not complete if you make a wrong law. Supreme Court questions, and Supreme Court is not complete if you make a wrong decision. It comes back to Parliament, and Parliament can make a law, correct law, to correct your mistake. And all of these institutions are not ruling, because if all of you commit mistake, it will come to ultimate court. That is people of India. People of India will exercise their choice. How do they exercise? By franchise, by voting they exercise. I tell you, during emergency, executive failed. You know how President simply signed without consulting the Constitution. Then people cannot go to court of law because courts of law also were restricted, and courts of law also was not very active, and they are not taking petitions. One fellow was killed during emergency, and Supreme Court says, yeah, you can kill in emergency. There is no right to life in emergency. Do you agree with this? There is no right to life during emergency. Can you say that? It was taken away during emergency. Then Supreme Court also simply says, there is one judge who dissented. Dissent is the value of democracy. Do you know who is that judge? H.R. Khanna. Do you know what he said? You can suspend all the rights during the emergency, but you cannot suspend right to life. Do you know how? Why? If you suspend right to life, what does it mean? You'll be killed. Okay, suspension means what? It has to be revived after some time. Then how do you revive? A suspension of fundamental right to life, you cannot revive. So what cannot be revived cannot be suspended. It is a natural right, natural law, not constitutional law. It is a natural law. And what is supreme than the constitutional law? Natural law. What is supreme than the constitutional law? Humanitarianism is the supreme. So the value of constitutional value of Indian democracy or Indian constitution is the value of life, value of nature, value of natural rights. That's what H.R. Khanna said, and said it is not correct. You cannot suspend right to life even during emergency. You can arrest and you can release. The personal liberty is suspended. He is released after so and so time. Finished. That's fine. And majority Supreme Court said it can be suspended. It was suspended. Media, censorship. You can't write unless you send your news item or article to collector office, district magistrate's office of the person concerned district, you cannot write it. I'd like to tell you, sir, I was a small journalist in 1976. I was studying BSc and I was in Warangal. I wrote an article in my father's newspaper, Janadharma, in Telugu. And according to rules of emergency, I have to send it to collector's office. We have sent it. Somebody read it, stamped it, signed it with green pen, blue seal and green signature, came back. Then my father published it in his newspaper. Then somebody, some enemies will be there always for everybody. So somebody who doesn't like my father and me complained to the collector, saying that this fellow criticized Mrs. Indira Gandhi indirectly in his article on so-and-so date. Then collector inquired, yes, it is a very serious article. I made a very serious criticism. But I kept it very subtle in a satire manner. I did not openly criticize, but subtle satire. Then collector calls my father, says, what Acharya Garu, he is a Bengali. I don't know Telugu, you write in Telugu, and my people who know Telugu could not understand your Telugu, and that means that's how it is got published. Sir, please avoid this. Otherwise, I have to arrest yourself and your son for writing this. Kindly don't get me into this position. He's a very nice person, I tell you, that collector. If it is today, both of us would have been arrested and kept in jail without bail. But there, that man has warned us. Please don't do this, Bolke. He gave a notice to us. But you know what my father said? Sir, we have followed the rules. We have sent the article to you for your censorship. You cleared it and then I published it. If at all you want to arrest anybody, you have to arrest your officer who cleared it, not me. So, and that is what? Questioning courage. That is also a spirit of Constitution, value of the Constitution. Freedom of speech and expression, the power of freedom of speech and expression. Then he said, I understand, Acharya Garu. I know that that's why I'm talking to you like this. Otherwise, I would have done what I have said. So please avoid it. I will also see that my office functions perfectly. So that is the situation. So what happens if you have pre-censorship? I can't speak. So 3 estates, judiciary, legislature, executive, failed the people in 1976, 77. Media failed by following the ruling party, giving biased reports. Do you know who helped the Constitution to survive? There was an election in 77. People voted enormously. They used their power and Mrs. Indira Gandhi was defeated and Janata Party government came to the power. I'd like to tell you, when 4 estates fail, people can succeed. This is the value of democracy. This is the power of the vote. And if you abuse it, I can't help. I only request people not to abuse right to vote. I'll also say, you go to polling booth, but you press nota, none of the above. I agree with you. All the candidates are not good enough. I agree. But does it mean that you have to come to the booth and then you exercise nota? What will happen if nota votes are increased in number and nota becomes victorious? What you have to do? You have to conduct election again and you have to go to election booth again and they themselves will contest again. What do you do? So in my view, elect a better person among the available person and have your own criteria for that. You think about him, try to know about his past. Okay, this is the power of the value of democracy, value of Constitution. I'll give you one more incident. I can talk a lot about failure of 3 estates, but I don't want to do that. Recently, what happened? Parliament has passed a farmers bill without any pre-consultation. Good or bad, keep it aside. We don't discuss. We don't have time. Then next, what happened? It was supposed to put for voting, but Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha said, no, voice vote is enough. Mujubani, we write in Telugu Mujubani, but it is a Urdu expression, Mujubani. So Mujubani vote se wo pass kiya. You are not supposed to. When Rajya Sabha, you don't have the sufficient numbers. It's a very crucial law, and you must know how many voted, how many not voted. They did not do, and it was passed. Now you see what's happening. People are totally stopping, and you don't consult people. You don't discuss in the cabinet. I say it is, if you don't discuss in the, what is the proof for me to say it is not discussed in the cabinet? You may ask. I say one of the members of the cabinet resigned when you introduced the bill. So you don't discuss, you don't debate, you don't consult, you don't talk to stakeholders, you bring law and you don't allow people to count. It was not discussed. Not count vote. It was not thoroughly discussed. Less time was given, so it is passed. Let us not go into the details because I again say I don't have time. So when all the estates fail, people will take it up. It's a natural consequence, good or bad. You have to imagine. This is the position of legislature. Executive, I already told you how they bring the legislation. Judiciary is because Corona and cannot have direct hearings. Corona pandemic is a problem, and so who has to take up this? Media, you know how biased it is. Where to go? This is the situation, but not disappointing. I'll give you one interesting, inspiring example before I leave it for questions. I'll take 2 or 3 minutes for this. There is one professor in IIM Ahmedabad. He came to Court of Law, Supreme Court, and said, sir, those who are having criminal background, we cannot stop them from contesting because everybody has a right to contest. Especially a person who is accused of a crime has a has a presumption that until finally it is proved, he is innocent. That is the basic tenets of criminal justice system. Because you have to have a free mind, take the evidence and decide whether he is accused, whether he is guilty or not. In the beginning itself, we cannot formulate an opinion that he is guilty and you can't go on. That's not correct. So this is the principle. So you cannot stop a person who is accused in a crime from contesting. Then do you know what that professor asked? Okay, don't stop him from contesting, but tell me about his criminal background. That was the question. Then Supreme Court thought, yeah, he is asking a reasonable thing. Why not? He was also asking for economic background, education background, and criminal background. If at all, if there is any, if you don't have, don't tell anything. Then the matter, the notices were given to the political parties and the government of India and governments of states. Do you, I don't know whether you will wonder to know that every political party opposed it. Every political party, no exception. I need not name. So no. Why should my candidate declare his education? Why should my candidate declare his criminal background? Why property issues should be told the people? Should be told to people. Then the Supreme Court finally heard all the arguments of either side, and then gave a judgment that people who vote have right to information about the criminal background, economic background, and education background of a candidate. That's all. Just tell. So there shall be a declaration by the candidate in the form of an affidavit. Affidavit is a sworn statement. Then do you know what happened? In 2002, the government, parliament has convened a special session or maybe an ordinary session, and there they passed a law, unanimously passed a law. And that law says, notwithstanding anything stated by the Supreme Court of India, no contesting candidate need to file an affidavit disclosing economic, educational, and criminal background. One sentence law passed. Then this proved professor again gone back to Supreme Court and asked, sir, this is the situation. Please come to my rescue. Supreme Court said that when right to information is part of right to vote, when right to vote is part of Article 19(1)(a), freedom of speech and expression, when a citizen exercises his freedom by casting vote, which is needed for change of a government or continuation of the existing government, you cannot scuttle it. It's a fundamental right. It is a basic structure of the Indian Constitution. You cannot sit in appeal before me, over me. You have to honor this right. It goes back to Parliament, and Parliament had no other go. Even though they did not like it, they passed a law. According to that law, every candidate who contests an election has to inform the people about number of crimes he has committed, number of the amount of property he has, and then the educational qualification. Then it's an opportunity for the people to read. Oh, this candidate is this kind of a man. This candidate is okay. This person, 3 persons before you, 4, 5, I don't know, number of people. Go and decide and elect. So this is the value of the democracy. This is the constitutional value envisaged by Ambedkar and others. And do you know who is he? He's an ordinary professor like me and you in a university, and he achieved it in spite of opposition by the entire political parties of the country. You tell me whether he has power, whether an individual has power under Indian Constitution? Answer is yes. This is the constitutional value. So I thank you very much for this kind opportunity. Protect the constitutional values, enrich the Constitution, protect Indian democracy, and for that be vigilant. Certify all the frauds, not only in the companies, frauds in the city also, in the society also, in governance also. Point out the frauds, question the frauds, and eliminate frauds. Be a vigilant, vibrant, responsible citizen of this country and help this country to grow. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions, please read.
Sir, that is great, sir. There are a huge number of questions that shows the interest evinced by the participants in the lecture. But due to paucity of time, we will attend to some other questions, and some other questions we will respond through mail, sir.
Right, fine, no problem.
Pawan Kumar himself has a huge number of questions, but
I know. I know.
We cannot spend another 1 hour or 2 hours on this.
I can understand. Yes, I thought of concluding earlier, but somehow it took up to this.
No, sir, you covered perfectly well, Sridhar garu. Perfectly, sir.
Yes, sir. Perfect timing, sir.
Absolutely. And I think Sridhar garu and myself will take Pawan Kumar individually for dinner and clarify all his questions. No, he raised very important questions, sir.
I'm happy with his questions. Let him ask. Let one of his questions be answered.
Yeah, yes, please.
One, Mr. Prakhar Gupta, sir. What he asked, we have multitude of laws in India. Although the execution and enforcement is the issue. What do you believe? Should we, as industry professionals, do and suggest to the government and the lawmakers to make the laws easy to understand, execute, especially in the field of anti-fraud and anti-bribery and corruption domain? I
totally agree with that gentleman. But I'd like to say, those who are defying the law, they are not doing because they don't know the law. They know law perfectly more than me. And always criminal is intelligent, you know. And police and the executive system lags behind a criminal. So I don't think that earlier I also used to have an opinion that those who do not know Constitution are ruling the country. And because of this, there is a problem. But my answer is they know the Constitution. They are deliberately doing it. They with a purpose, with a vested interest. So we also should read the Constitution. We should understand the law and we should fight. The multiplicity of laws is a necessity. So now when you are committing a fraud, you tell me, should we have a law against the cyber fraud or not? So depending on the crimes, you know, we have to make laws. There are certain redundant laws, I agree, but they die without any problem. And if not, we have to remove it. We do that. This is my appeal to all of you. Understand the position, question the fault.
Sir, with your permission, I'll add. You mentioned it, having seen in and out of government, it is not the law which is bad. It is the investigation, adherence to the law in investigation and the charge sheeting and the prosecution procedures which are bad, not the law.
Correct. Our honesty, our character. That matters.
Sir, capability, sir.
Capability.
Yes, capabilities are lacking.
Sir, I tell you, there is a fatal combination. I am efficient, but I am also corrupt. What do I do?
Unmatching combination, sir.
Fatal combination.
Better. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, one more question. While AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning are replicate behavior and patterns, though through rules engines. my intent was to know, are there any minimal guidelines or experiences? Really appreciate your response.
See, artificial intelligence is coming up. We have a law called product liability law. Suppose a product created by artificial intelligence, imbibed with artificial intelligence, has behaved in a particular manner and caused some damage to human right. Who will be liable? Earlier, product is liable and product maker is liable. This law is, even now it is there. So can we make creator of that product liable for the damage caused by the product? It's a big question. So machine intelligence is fine. We can use it, use technology for various purposes. I am not against artificial intelligence. Guidelines are also not developed so far. It is like something like corona pandemic. We don't know vaccine. Pandemic came and we have to develop vaccine. So let us know the effect of artificial intelligence and let us build up guidelines accordingly.
Sir, next question, Mr. Ramakrishnan Subramanian. Is also same person, sir? Is there any provision to ensure that the common man is educated on freedom of speech, right and equality? While there are provisions, let me complete it, sir, kindly. While there are provisions for the freedom, not seen a provision to educate the common man. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong, sir. Constitution has certain provisions recommending the governments to take the Constitution of India and other laws to the people. But they failed. Do you remember Santosh Kumarji's answer? He's right. He's right. No, we have enough laws, but we don't. When I was CIC, I was examining a question. One law is not available. A student of law asked for it from the law ministry. Law ministry doesn't have the copy. You make law and you don't have a copy. What kind of a system it is? So that was questioned, and I also questioned it. And they are doing it. They are digitizing law. Law should be simple. Law should be understandable. Law should be accessible. And that is your question's objective. I totally agree with you.
Sir, next question. Navita Srikanth, sir. Requesting coordinator to ensure democracy, rule of law, political system or Indian country systems to be avoided in such a technical forum. Such case studies must be relevant to detect, prevent and...
Yeah, that is for you, sir, not for me.
That's what...
Yeah, okay. So maybe that's an opinion.
Yes, it's opinion, sir.
So it's opinion. This is for us, not for professor.
Correct.
Then Mr. Nagaraj PS, sir, what is the best way to communicate defects in administrative systems so as to reach the top authority of a department? There is an ombudsman system to address grievances.
We don't have.
Yes, sir.
One is Right to Information Act. Use it. Bring out the certified copies of documents which reflect the policies, and then point out the defect. Write articles, question. We give speeches. Now you have technology available. Record YouTube videos and go to the people and explain them without abusive language, without personal criticism.
Sir, Mr. Prakhar Gupta, he has asked one more question. I think quite relevant to the... Sir, while reporting frauds and crimes, the biggest roadblock is the retaliation and harassment. How do you suggest to deal in such environment?
That is the society, sir, we are living in. Do you remember Bruce Lee movie? Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon. Now, your international president is Bruce. So it makes me to remember Bruce Lee. You know what Bruce Lee said? I can break bricks. Bricks will not respond and bricks will not kick back. But people kick back. So that is the dynamic situation that you have to be careful about it. And you have to experiment in dynamic society accordingly.
Sir, then Mr. Narasimharao Garlapati, what will be your advice to CFE professionals for us, a professional to adhere during investigations or fraud preventions?
Sir, I'm not that great. You're all experts of the field. You know better than me. But still I can say, be honest, be vigilant. That's all. Everything will fall in line.
Sir, next one, Satish, sir, Satish Putan Marathil. When the constitutional rights conflict with other laws enacted, what is the remedy, sir?
Constitutional will not conflict other laws. It will not. If it conflicts, law will be declared void, unconstitutional.
Then law will be unconstitutional, sir. Yes. Ultra virus and unconstitutional.
Constitution will prevail.
Yeah, constitution prevails.
So now we'll take up some of the Pawan Kumar's questions, sir.
Okay.
Normally, value comes on awareness. We all can create value with awareness,
Correct.
what to do and what not to do.
100%. The whole problem in this country is lack of awareness. And when you have rightly recognized it, diagnosed it, come on, treat. Knowledge is the solution. Awareness is solution. Information, spreading information is solution. Please do it. You're right.
Sir, Sridhar sir, I have one question which is echoed by many colleagues here in the forum, many questions. Your views on demonetization briefly.
Yeah. See, demonetization is a decision which was announced all of a sudden. I don't know who was thinking about it, who were consulted, who was debated. We don't know. Surprisingly, even the finance minister was listening to news item like you and me, finance minister of the government. So if that is the case, it is highly undemocratic, absolutely wrong. It was as if President of India was listening to the effect of declaration of emergency like you and me. It is on par with the same. And one more point I'd like to tell you, I met Raghuram Rajan in airport. And after I introduced as information commissioner, he asked me, Professor, don't you think that they have a duty to tell before what they do? Absolutely correct point, sir. Section 41B, 41C, I suggest all of you go home and search Google and read 41C and 41D of Right to Information Act. It says that whichever is going to affect you, it must be told to you. Whatever affects you must be informed to you. This is a very important provision. I think this is the answer. And it's a failure, and you know it's how it failed. How it failed and how the people are harassed.
Sir, I know
people died in the queues.
Yes.
Who is responsible for the death?
I know a lot more. I can't discuss in this forum.
I don't know. We are analyzing it in a legal manner. That's all. So without consulting, you can't bring such things.
Very draconian. Very draconian.
Very draconian.
Yes.
So, chat window one.
ఇంకా questions మనం రాధాకృష్ణ గారు పంపించేద్దాం. We'll send the questions out. Time is there. We have the time.
We can take another 3-4 minutes, sir.
Oh, please. Go ahead.
One Panikarana is asking, do you support the silence of CJI on the CM's letter? Allegations on the that is not, I think.
I have answered already. It is
Yeah. No. See, let me tell you. According to rules announced by the Supreme Court on its website, anybody can complain, and complaint has to be considered by the CJI, and CJI has to respond to it. He also knows it. Perhaps he has serious problems and he might need some more time. So there is nothing wrong in giving him some more time.
I'll add, sir. CJI is bound to take note of your complaint.
Correct.
He need not tell you on a daily basis what he is doing about it.
Correct.
Yeah, that's the law. I know there is an internal.
And there will be huge debate, sir.
It's going on, sir. I know.
It is not that easy. And it takes time, sir, to decide. Very difficult. It is not a multiple answer question. You can tick one of it. No.
Well said, sir. This is not a multiple choice question. Yeah.
Sir, so we'll have 2 more questions, sir. Again, back to Pawan Kumar. What he says, why the human rights comes only when some incident happens? Why can't they be more proactive in preventing all this? As we know, prevention is better than cure.
I agree, totally agree with you. So people have to be sensitized. And see, I'll give you one example. Every day, 5 persons are being killed in police custody. Every day. And you know, Supreme Court suggested a very interesting suggestion. It said that fix up CCTV cameras in all places where custodial interrogation is going on. Not only by police, by ED, by CBI, everybody. It's a fantastic preventive step, sir. Pawan Kumarji, please read that. And I also wrote a couple of articles on this. Please read it. I also preach the prevention. So if you have CCTVs, you know, it is transparency, right to information. So people will definitely not resort to this violation of human rights.
Sir, as an ex-officer, I assure you, like private lockers, private lockup rooms will come up, sir. 100%. Like private lockers of the banks, private police lockups will come up. It will not stop.
And I tell you, my dear friends, that there are 2 sections in Indian Penal Code since 1860, which says that you cannot torture or you cannot impose violence or cause injury to extract a confession or to recover a thing, you cannot. That's a very, very clear law, but which goes unimplemented till today. So we have, what I am trying to tell you is, we should be conscious, we should keep on questioning. Awareness is the only way, questioning is the only way to prevent corruption, fraud, and human rights violation.
So final question will take up, sir. Other questions will respond in email. And this is also from Pawan Kumar, sir. Sir, I feel rules are made in India to create values and for law, but no effective monitoring and implementation. I feel judicial and legal firm should step out rather than waiting in implementing laws. Your
Pawan
thoughts,
Kumar,
sir?
you're right. But if they also don't do, what to do? We have to question. Civil society has to question.
So, thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you very much.
War to Vijay.